Hello everybody. In this video tutorial, I will show you how to configure all the necessary tools that you will need for the Ruby Cucumber development. Here are some of the items that you will be installing on your laptop. First of all, the Ruby. You have to have the Ruby programming installation and the compiler and everything. So that would be the first step. Second, you will be installing is development kit. This is add-on to the Ruby environment, so it will allow you to configure different gems. Gems are nothing but the programming libraries that are written by the third party or the open source or written as open source libraries, which you can utilize in your Ruby Cucumber test automation development. You will also be configuring the web drivers. And if you don't have Chrome or Firefox, then please download and install them first. You can easily go to just Google it, search for Chrome download or Firefox download, and download from those sites, and then install it. That installation is not covered in this video tutorial, but you will need it when we actually start running your automation test. For now, you can just we'll just configure the web drivers, and then you can install at home this Chrome and Firefox. The fourth step would be to actually install the RubyMine Development IDE, which will allow you to actually write your automation test. The last step would be installing the actual gems or programming libraries like Cucumber, Watir, Selenium, and everything else. So I'll walk you through the step-by-step installation in this video tutorial, and hopefully you will be able to follow the steps and configure on your laptop at the same way. One other thing, we copied the software on all the necessary tools and software that you will be installing on your laptop. We created we copied all the software under C Ruby directory, and there is a student copy folder. This is where you have everything, all the drivers and everything necessary to install. So let's go through our first installation, which is Ruby installer. And make sure you follow the steps. Don't skip any of the steps. Just try to follow the steps and reach out to basically us if you have any issues. Or let me go ahead and click the Ruby installer, accept the license. In this tab, you make sure you change the path to C Ruby, and then leave the other path in, whatever was there really. So what you will be installing is under the C Ruby, on your C drive, Ruby folder, and then you will be installing the Ruby programming support as well as the MySys installation, both of them there. There are other things checked, just leave them checked, and just click on install. This shouldn't take more than a few minutes, maybe a couple of minutes, and we'll be on our second step for the installation. Okay, so now once the Ruby is installed, there's a checkbox here which says run RISDK install MySys and development toolchain. So we will go ahead and install that. So leave that checked and click on finish. It will start the MySys 2 installation. It has once the MySys installer starts, it has three items that we'll be installing one by one. So we'll be following all three steps. So I'll go ahead and hit and type it 1 and hit enter. It will start the installation, and it will bring up this dialog box, and click next. Here again, make sure you change the path to C Ruby MySys 64. So it should look like what I just have on in the video. Your path should look like that, and then click next and leave it default. Click next. Now I'm assuming here that you all have 64-bit laptops, and if any of you have 32-bit laptops, then I will point you, then this probably video tutorial will not work for you. So make sure, and I can point you to the 32-bit download files at that point. But you should be able to follow through the steps otherwise. The MySys 2 installation, the toolkit installation will take some time. So just be patient with the video and the installation process and let it finish. Okay, so installation completed, and it says run MySys 2 64-bit now. Just leave the default, click finish. What it will do, it will pop up another dialog box to actually kick off the MySys 2 basically development kit. But you can leave that and click finish and let it run on the side. We'll go back to the original MySys 2 installation box. We still have to complete step number 2 and step number 3. So I will go ahead and do that for now. So enter number 2, click, and then hit enter. It will try to update any programming, any libraries that MySys 2 base installation has, and try to download it from the internet. So at this point, you need to be connected to the internet. Make sure you are connected to the internet, and you can ignore the errors. It says on my screens, it says the system update failed, installation failed, pacman failed. It could be that I already have the pacman installed, so that's the reason it's failing. But probably for you, it should complete in a reasonable amount of time. So I will go ahead and do the step number 3. And it will again try to download a bunch of updated libraries from the internet site. Now, third step might take some time. It takes about 10 minutes or so. So just be patient with the installation procedure. Um, and you can see at the bottom, it's increasing the number. You have 62 items and it's up to 30 31 now. So it needs to finish everything. So just leave it there. And once it completes, then we'll move on to the next installation step. So now it's actually installing. Previously, it was checking the packages and everything else. Um, Okay, so at this point, we perform all three steps, install 1, 2, and 3, all items for the development kit. So I'll go ahead and close this window. Our installation is complete at this point for the development kit. So let's move on to the next step. You can close out this window as well if you need. So far we have installed the C, basically Ruby libraries under C Ruby folder. We have installed this particular library in the C Ruby folder as well. And you can verify that actually if you go on the C Ruby, now you have these two additional directories, and this is where your core installation files are. Um, and the version that we are using for the development is Ruby 24x64. And I'll take you to the site afterwards in a separate video where you can actually download those installation files and everything. So let's move on to our third step, which is to configure or copy web drivers, basically. We already given you 3 web drivers here: Chrome driver, Gecko driver, and IE driver server. So these drivers are you will need these drivers in order to interact with the browser through the automation test. So I'll just simply copy, Control C, Control V, or you can right click on it once you select and copy. And we'll be putting them under Ruby, um, the bin directory, and just paste it over here. And that's all we need as far as the configuration goes. We'll talk a little bit further as once we start utilizing write your automation test. Um, The next step would be to actually install the development IDE, which is the RubyMine. You should have RubyMine under student copy folder, which is RubyMine 2017 3.2 version. So let's go ahead and double click on that to actually trigger the installation. And just follow the steps. Click next. Here, just leave everything default. You don't need to change any path or anything. So just click next here. You can select the 64-bit launcher here. It will create a shortcut on your desktop and it will trigger the 64-bit launcher. You don't need anything else, so just click next. Click install. And this one will install actually the RubyMine IDE. This might take a few minutes to install. So once the installation is done, let's just click on finish. Don't run the RubyMine yet. You don't need it as far as the day one goes. So we'll talk about that later on. So I'll go ahead and click finish and go back to the installation steps. So we have 4 steps completed as far as the configuration goes, and let's go ahead and do the last step as well, install gems. In your slides, in the PowerPoints that I gave you, we'll be installing several different gems here. So we'll be installing the Cucumber, we'll be installing Bundler, R-Spec, Watir, TestGen, and lastly Selenium. These are different gems or programming libraries that you will need it. Cucumber gem is nothing but the framework, actual Cucumber framework. Because what we have done is we install only the Ruby programming. It does not come with any Cucumber support. So we'll be installing the Cucumber framework. The bundler will help you manage your development environment, and I'll show you when we actually write your first automation test. Then the R-Spec and Watir. R-Spec is again just like Cucumber. It's a BDD development environment, and you can play around with that in the future. But we may be using we will be using some of the components from the R-Spec. So we'll talk about that probably in session number 5 or 6. Watir is a WebDriver, just like Selenium and Watir, both are WebDrivers. So obviously we will be using them in order to interact with the web browsers. And the TestGen is an interesting utility gem, and I'll show you the usage in order to speed up your development a little bit further. But we'll go ahead and install that now. So let me, how do you go and install those gems? You won't be able to do that using the installation, so you have to open your command prompt and do the installation. So if you know what is your, so you need to go and open your command prompt. So depending on the computer that you are using or operating system, make sure you are on Windows and Windows 7 or 10, you can just type it in, open the run dialog box and type it in CMD. And you should be in the command prompt like this. And here, just to you can, this is a command prompt where you can write different kinds of commands, and we'll be using the commands. So I'll go ahead and do the installation for Cucumber. In order to do that, you have to type in gem install Cucumber. This is the command you will be And once you type that in and hit enter, and since we have the Ruby programming installed, it recognizes that this is a Ruby command and it will try to install the Cucumber framework. Typically, what it does is it goes to the Ruby installer. Actually, the site here, let me show you quickly the URL for the site, the rubygems.org, and that's where all the gems are typically available for the in the open source environment. So it goes to that site and downloads necessary files and then installs it on your laptop. So you need to be connected to the internet in order to install the gems. So our first gem is install Cucumber, and it download a bunch of files and install it. Let me go ahead and do other commands quickly. So we'll be installing the second one. There is no specific order. You can go in any order, but I'll just follow the order here. Gem install bundler. Hit enter, and it will install the bundler. Just go to gem install R-Spec. Gem install Watir. Gem install Selenium. Gem install test gen. This is our last gem that we want to install as far as our automation testing configuration goes. Okay, so looks like we have everything installed. Let's see what we have installed. So you can learn few commands that will help you. One of the command is what kind of Ruby version. So you can type it in Ruby V, and it will tell you what is the version that you have installed, and it will show you the 2.4 version that we installed earlier. If you want to see the list of gems that are installed, so you can say gem list, and it will show you the different gems here. So you have a bunch of gems. So bundler, obviously we install, and it's the actual numbers are the version numbers. What version of the gem that you install? So R-Spec has 4 different programming libraries as part of the R-Spec. TestGen is 1.0 version. Watir is 6.10.3 version. You have Selenium WebDriver 3.10, Selenium as well. Let's see, the Rake is 12.0. The Cucumber libraries are here. These are pretty much Cucumber libraries. So you can play around with these commands, and there are a few other commands here. You can see it here in your PowerPoint slides. So when you get a chance, play around with those things. Now, as far as downloading the IDEs and other things, you should have. So here, where do you get this Ruby and MySys installation files? So we downloaded on earlier, and that's what we copied, put it in one folder, and give it to you under student copy folder. But just in case if you need to download in the future, you can go to this site, rubyinstaller.org downloads, and download this particular version. At the same time, you don't have to download MySys 64 because it is part of the Ruby installer. Now, as far as downloading the browser drivers, you can go to these different sites here to download the browser drivers. And the last thing would be the RubyMine. And this is where you can go. This particular URL, the JetBrains is a company. They have several different IDEs, and RubyMine is one of the IDEs for Ruby development, and we will use it for automation testing, creating our automation tests as well. So you can download it from this site. And that's it. So that's so in this video I just wanted to cover the installation side of things, and we'll have a few more videos in the future, just to help you understand a little bit further the RubyMine IDE as well as other development tasks. Thank you.